The distant red dot in the night sky had teased human imagination for centuries. Mars, named after the god of war, held secrets that scientists and dreamers alike yearned to uncover. But no one, not even the most visionary among us, could have predicted what we would eventually find beneath its rusty surface. The year was 2042. I still remember the day I received the call that would forever change my life. The voice on the other end belonged to Dr. Chin, the lead scientist of the International Mars Initiative. "Alex, we need you on this mission," she said without preamble. "Your background in hydrogeology makes you the perfect candidate for what we're planning." I laughed nervously. "You do realize I've spent my career studying underwater caves on Earth, right? I've never even worked for a space program." "That's exactly why we want you," Dr. Chin replied. "We don't need another astronaut. We need someone who understands water systems in extreme environments. Someone who can think outside traditional space exploration parameters." 3 months later, I found myself at the Mojave Space Center, surrounded by the most brilliant minds in astrobiology, engineering, and planetary science. Our mission had a deceptively simple name: Project Watershed. Its goals, however, were anything but simple. We were to establish the first permanent human settlement on Mars and unlock the planet's water resources. The preliminary data from our autonomous rovers suggests large deposits of subsurface ice near the equatorial region, explained Commander Rivera during our first briefing. She pointed to a 3D holographic map hovering above the conference table. "This defies everything we thought we knew about Martian water distribution. If confirmed, it changes our entire approach to colonization." The training was brutal. 18 hours a day of physical conditioning, technical drills, and psychological evaluations. My muscles ached in places I didn't know could hurt. But it was the isolation chamber that truly tested my limits. 30 days of complete solitude to simulate the psychological strain of deep space travel. "You did well," Dr. Patel, our team psychologist, told me afterward. "Better than most, actually. You have a natural resilience that will serve you well out there." I didn't feel resilient. I felt terrified. But beneath that fear lay something stronger, a primal curiosity that humans have carried since we first looked up at the stars. Launch day arrived with alarming speed. Standing before the towering Ares 9 rocket, I felt incredibly small. This metal giant would be our home for the 9-month journey to the Red Planet. Behind me, a crowd had gathered, families of crew members, government officials, and thousands of ordinary people who had traveled from across the globe to witness history. "Nervous?" asked Thomas, our flight engineer, as we prepared to board. "Terrified," I admitted. He grinned. "4th mission for me. But the first one beyond the moon. So yeah, terrified sounds about right." The ascent was both more violent and more graceful than I had imagined. The force crushed me into my seat as the rocket tore through the atmosphere. Then came the sudden weightlessness as we reached orbit, followed by the gentle push of the ion engines propelling us toward Mars. Life aboard the spacecraft settled into a rhythm. Daily scientific experiments, maintenance tasks, exercise routines to combat muscle atrophy. And always, the red planet growing larger in our observation window. It was during the 7th month that we received the transmission that changed everything. One of the advanced probes, sent ahead to prepare for our arrival, had detected unusual thermal patterns beneath the Martian surface. "It's not just ice," Commander Rivera announced, her face tense as she showed us the data. "The patterns suggest movement. Liquid water movement." "That's impossible," I said automatically. "Surface pressure on Mars is too low. Any liquid water would immediately evaporate or freeze." "Exactly," she replied. "So how do you explain this?" We spent days analyzing the data, proposing and discarding theories. Eventually, one possibility remained that none of us dared voice until Thomas finally said it. "What if it's not natural? What if something, or someone, is manipulating the water?" The notion was absurd, the stuff of science fiction. Yet the evidence before us defied conventional explanation. Either our understanding of Mars was fundamentally flawed, or we were about to make the greatest discovery in human history. 2 weeks before our scheduled landing, we lost contact with 3 of the 4 advanced probes. The 4th sent a final transmission, a strange, rhythmic pattern that our computers couldn't decode. Before it too went silent, as our landing craft descended through the thin Martian atmosphere, I pressed my face against the viewport, watching the alien landscape rush up to meet us. The rusty plains, the ancient riverbeds long dry, the massive Valles Marineris stretching across the horizon like a scar. And there, at the landing site, something glinted in the pale sunlight. Something that shouldn't have been there. Something that looked disturbingly like a deliberate arrangement of reflective surfaces around the very spot where our sensors had detected the impossible. Flowing water on a world too dead to support it, that we were about to touch down and face whatever awaited us on the red planet. Whatever secrets Mars had kept hidden for millions of years were about to be revealed, for better or worse. The landing was rougher than expected. A sudden dust storm had kicked up just as we began our final descent, reducing visibility to near zero and forcing Commander Rivera to rely solely on instruments for guidance. We hit the surface with a bone-jarring thud that sent equipment cases flying through the cabin. "Status report," Rivera called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Primary systems operational," Thomas responded, fingers flying across his control panel. "Environmental readings nominal. Hull integrity at 98%. Dr. Chen was already at the viewport, wiping away the red dust that coated the exterior. "Those reflective structures. I can't see them anymore." I unstrapped from my seat and joined her, pressing my face against the cold glass. The Martian landscape stretched before us, barren, rocky, with gentle slopes leading to a series of low ridges about a kilometer away. The strange reflective arrangement we'd spotted during descent was indeed gone. Or perhaps it had never been there at all, just a trick of light on the crystalline frost that sometimes formed on the Martian surface. "Maybe we imagined it," I suggested, though I didn't believe that for a second. The next 12 hours were consumed by the carefully choreographed dance of establishing our base. The habitat modules, sent ahead on cargo ships months earlier, needed to be connected and sealed. Life support systems required calibration. Communications with Earth had to be established through the relay satellites in orbit. It wasn't until our second day on Mars that I finally stepped onto the planet's surface. The suit W, as bulkier than the ones we'd trained in, designed to withstand the extreme temperature variations and provide protection against the razor-sharp dust particles that covered everything. "Remember," Dr. Chen's voice crackled in my helmet, "this isn't just a historic moment. We're here to work. Water is the key to everything: long-term habitation, fuel production, potential for life. Your expertise is why you're first out." I nodded, though she couldn't see it from her position monitoring systems back in the habitat. "I understand. I'm heading to the primary survey site now." The reduced gravity made walking feel like bouncing in slow motion. Each step sent puffs of rusty dust into the thin air. I carried the ground-penetrating radar equipment, designed specifically for detecting subsurface ice deposits and liquid water pockets. As I approached the target location, the exact spot where our probes had detected the anomalous thermal patterns, something caught my eye. A pattern in the dust. Not random, not natural. Lines too straight, too precise. My heart raced as I followed them with my gaze, tracing what appeared to be a massive geometric shape partially obscured by sand and time. "Command, are you seeing this?" I asked, activating my helmet camera. "Unclear imagery," Rivera responded. "Dust interference. What exactly are we looking at, Alex?" "I'm not entirely sure. It looks like..." I hesitated, questioning my own eyes. "It looks like the surface has been deliberately arranged. Like a massive mosaic or pattern. I'm standing in what appears to be the center of it." I set up the radar equipment with trembling hands and initiated the scan. The results appeared on my helmet display, and what I saw made me forget to breathe for a moment. "Command, I'm detecting a massive network of tunnels? Chambers? Something extensive beneath the surface. And there's definitely water down there. A lot of it. Natural formation?" Thomas asked through the comms. I shook my head, forgetting again that they couldn't see the gesture. "Not a chance. These are engineered spaces. Precision cut. Interconnected. They extend at least 2 kilometers in each direction from my position, and that's just the range of our equipment. Silence fell over the communication channel. We all understood the implications. This wasn't just a scientific discovery, it was a paradigm shift for human understanding. Alex, Commander Rivera finally spoke, her voice measured. I need you to return to base immediately. Do not collect samples yet. Do not disturb anything. But, that's an order. We need to reassess our approach. The walk back felt interminable. Questions tumbled through my mind like the dust devils that occasionally spiraled across the Martian plains. Who had built these structures? Were they still here? The most obvious answer, that we had discovered evidence of non-human intelligence, seemed simultaneously the most logical and the most fantastical. Back at the habitat, the mood was tense. Dr. Chen was reviewing my scan data with an intensity I'd never seen before. Thomas was checking and rechecking our communications equipment, ensuring our findings could be transmitted back to Earth. And Commander Rivera was deep in conversation with Mission Control, her voice too low for me to hear. We need to go back out there, I insisted. Set up a perimeter of sensors. Maybe drill a small exploratory bore. Absolutely not, Rivera interrupted, disconnecting her call. Earth Command has issued explicit instructions. We are to secure the habitat, continue passive scans only, and await the arrival of the secondary team. That's 3 months away. I protested. And in the meantime, Rivera continued as if I hadn't spoken, they've declared all information about this discovery classified. Level Alpha containment protocols. Dr. Chen looked up from her screen. They're afraid, she said simply. With good reason, Thomas added. If we found evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence, or ancient human presence, I interjected. We can't rule that out either. Regardless, Rivera said firmly, we follow protocols. Our mission parameters have changed. That night, as the others slept, I stayed at the viewport, staring out at the Martian landscape bathed in pale starlight. The answer to humanity's age-old question, are we alone, possibly lay just beneath my feet. And we were being told to wait. A sudden movement caught my eye, something shifting in the shadows near the ridgeline. I leaned closer to the glass, straining to see. For just a moment, I thought I saw a light, artificial, steady, not the random reflection of starlight on minerals. Then it was gone, leaving me to wonder if isolation and excitement were already playing tricks on my mind, or if something out there was watching us as intently as we were searching for it. 2 weeks passed with agonizing slowness. Each day brought the same routine: passive scans, habitat maintenance, data analysis, and strict enforcement of the no exploration policy. The tension within our small team grew palpable. Dr. Chen buried herself in the scan results, barely speaking except to report findings. Thomas obsessively monitored our communication systems, convinced Earth wasn't telling us everything. Commander Rivera maintained her stoic professionalism, but I could see the strain in the tight lines around her eyes. And me? I couldn't sleep. Every night I found myself at the viewport, watching the ridgeline where I'd seen the light. Sometimes I thought I caught glimpses of movement, but nothing definitive enough to report without sounding unhinged. It was during one of these late-night vigils that Thomas joined me, his usually cheerful face now haggard with exhaustion. I've been analyzing our communications, he said quietly, glancing over his shoulder to ensure we weren't overheard. There are gaps. Brief moments when the signal drops completely. Always at the same time each day. Equipment malfunction? I suggested that he shook his head. Too regular. Too precise. Something or someone is interfering with our transmissions. The implication hung in the air between us. Before I could respond, the habitat's alarm system blared to life, red emergency lights bathing everything in an eerie glow. Atmospheric breach in Module 3. Rivera's voice came over the intercom. Emergency protocols active. We rushed to the central command area where Rivera was already sealing off the affected section. What happened? I demanded. Unknown, she replied tersely. Pressure dropped suddenly. The outer seal has been compromised. That's near the sample storage, Dr. Chen said, her face pale. The core samples from our initial landing site are there. A sick feeling settled in my stomach. This wasn't an accident. No one contradicted me. We all knew the Martian surface was harsh, but our habitat had been designed to withstand dust storms, extreme temperature variations, and even minor meteorite impacts. A random breach was highly unlikely. We need to investigate, I said firmly. Rivera shook her head. Protocol states, protocol won't matter if we're dead, I interrupted. Something is happening here that Earth Command didn't anticipate. We need to understand it before it's too late. After a tense debate, Rivera reluctantly agreed to a limited expedition. Thomas and I would suit up and examine the breach from the outside while she and Dr. Chen monitored from within. The plan was simple: identify the cause, document everything, and retreat immediately if there was any sign of danger. Stepping onto the Martian surface for only the second time, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. The habitat's exterior lights illuminated a small area around the base, creating a bubble of artificial day in the perpetual dusk of the Martian evening. There, Thomas pointed to Module 3 where a jagged hole about the size of my fist had been punched through the reinforced exterior. The edges were curled outward, suggesting the force had come from inside. That's not possible, I muttered, examining the damage. Nothing in that module could have caused this kind of explosive decompression. Thomas ran his gloved hand along the edge of the hole. This wasn't an explosion. Look at the metal, it's been dissolved somehow. Before I could respond, our suit sensors began registering an anomaly. Vibrations, subtle but increasing, coming from beneath the surface. Command, are you getting this? I asked. Affirmative, Rivera responded. Seismic activity reading at 2.3 and climbing. But Mars isn't tectonically active. This shouldn't be happening. The vibrations intensified until I could feel them through my boots. Dust began to dance across the surface in intricate patterns. Then, about 50 meters from our position, the ground started to shift and bulge upward. Back to the habitat, Thomas said urgently. Now. We were halfway there when the Martian surface split open with a sound that transmitted even through the thin atmosphere. A low, rumbling groan like the planet itself was awakening. From the fissure emerged what I can only describe as water, but unlike any water I'd ever seen. It moved with purpose, flowing upward against gravity, forming shapes that momentarily held before dissolving and reforming. Alex, Thomas, get inside immediately. Rivera's voice had lost its composure, but I couldn't move. The water, if that's what it was arranging itself into a configuration that seemed hauntingly familiar. The same geometric pattern I'd seen etched into the dust during my first expedition. It's trying to communicate, I whispered. Thomas grabbed my arm. We need to go. Now. As we retreated toward the airlock, the strange liquid formation followed, maintaining a constant distance. Not threatening, but definitely observing. Once safely inside, we watched through the viewport as the substance continued to move across the Martian landscape, flowing toward the ridgeline where I'd spotted the mysterious lights. What just happened out there? Rivera demanded. I think, I said slowly, we just made first contact. The next 72 hours were a blur of activity. Earth Command, when finally informed of our encounter, issued conflicting directives. First ordering us to abandon the mission, then countermanding with instructions to establish communication, then demanding we collect samples for immediate return to Earth. Dr. Chen, in a rare moment of defiance, refused to transmit her analysis of the substance's behavior. They're panicking, she told us, making decisions based on fear rather than science. Whatever this is, it's been here long before us. We need to understand it before we do anything rash. We established a perimeter of sensors around the habitat to monitor for further activity. For a time, all was quiet. The fissure had resealed itself, and no trace remained of the liquid formation. Then, on the 5th night after the incident, all our systems went offline simultaneously. Power, communications, environmental controls, everything. The habitat was plunged into darkness and silence. Emergency backups kicked in after 30 seconds, restoring minimal lighting and life support. Rivera immediately began diagnostics, her fingers dancing across keyboards as she tried to determine what had happened. "This is impossible," she murmured. "Every system shows evidence of the same anomaly, a power surge that somehow circumvented all our surge protectors and simultaneously affected isolated circuits." Thomas looked grim. "It's in our systems." No one needed to ask what was that as if in response to his words, the main view screen flickered to life, though it wasn't connected to any power source. Patterns began to appear, the same geometric configurations we'd seen on the surface and in the liquid formation. They shifted and changed with hypnotic rhythm. "It's a language," Dr. Chen breathed, her eyes wide. "Mathematical. Precise. Can you decode it?" Rivera asked. "Given time, maybe. There seems to be a pattern based on prime numbers and..." She never finished her sentence. The habitat shuddered violently, knocking us off our feet. When we regained our balance, the view screen had gone dark. In its place, a message had appeared on every display surface in the habitat: tablets, monitors, even the digital readouts on our equipment. The same 5 words, repeated over and over: "The water remembers. Do you?" Outside, the Martian night had come alive. Lights, hundreds of them, moved across the landscape, converging on our position from every direction. The ground beneath us trembled as if something massive was approaching from below. "Suit up," Rivera ordered, her voice tight with controlled fear. "Full expedition gear. Whatever happens next, we face it together." As we donned our suits with shaking hands, I couldn't help but wonder, what memory did the water hold? And why did it think we should share it? The answers lay somewhere in those approaching lights and the rumbling depths beneath our feet, answers that would either open a new chapter in human understanding or close the book on our expedition permanently. I checked my suit's oxygen level one last time and sealed my helmet. Through the reinforced glass, I watched as the first of the lights reached our perimeter. Whatever secrets Mars had kept hidden for millennia were about to be revealed, and we would be the first humans to witness them, if we survived the experience. The airlock cycled open with a hiss that seemed unnaturally loud in our heightened state of awareness. Commander Rivera led the way, her posture rigid with determination. Thomas followed, carrying our makeshift defense kit, little more than drilling equipment repurposed as potential weapons. Dr. Chen and I brought up the rear, each clutching portable analyzers to gather whatever data we could. The Martian night greeted us with an alien tableau. The approaching lights had formed a perfect circle around our habitat, pulsing in synchronized rhythm. The ground beneath our boots vibrated with increasing intensity, sending cascades of rusty dust into the thin air. "Stay together," Rivera ordered through our comm system. "No one breaks formation for any reason." We had barely taken 10 steps when the first shockwave hit. Not a gradual tremor like before, but a violent rust that knocked all of us off our feet. I tumbled backward, my helmet striking a rock. Warning indicators flashed across my visor, minor integrity breach, automatically sealing. "Status," Rivera barked. "Operational," Thomas reported. "Same," Dr. Chen added. "Suit compromised but stable," I said, pushing myself upright. The second shock wave was stronger than the first. This time, the ground didn't just shake, it split. Fissures raced outward from our position like lightning bolts, branching and connecting until they formed the same geometric pattern we'd seen repeated throughout our encounter. A massive symbol etched into the Martian surface with us at its center. "It's happening directly beneath the habitat," Dr. Chen's voice held a note of panic as she checked her analyzer. "The epicenter is exactly where our samples were stored." Before anyone could respond, the circle of lights began to move. Not toward us as I'd feared, but inward, converging on each other until they formed a single pulsing entity hovering just above the ground. It reminded me of bioluminescent algae back on Earth, but moving with unmistakable purpose. "We should retreat to the habitat," Thomas suggested, his voice steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. Rivera shook her head. "Look." She pointed to where our habitat stood, or had stood. The structure was now partially submerged, sinking steadily into the Martian soil as if being swallowed. The ground around it rippled like liquid despite maintaining its solid appearance. Our supplies, I breathed. The return vehicle components, gone, Rivera confirmed grimly. We're stranded. The implications hit us all simultaneously. Earth's secondary team was still months away. Our life support systems, limited to our suits, would last less than a week. We were facing extinction on an alien world. That's when the transmission came through, not from Earth, but from our own communication system inside the rapidly disappearing habitat. The voice that filled our helmets was human, yet simultaneously not. It spoke in perfect English, but with a cadence and resonance that sent chills down my spine. Your presence activates ancient protocols, it said. The Water Collective acknowledges your return. Return? Dr. Chen whispered. We've never been here before. Who are you? Rivera demanded. What do you want from us? The light formation pulsed brighter. Identity is fluid. Want is irrelevant. The cycle continues as designed. What cycle? I asked, unable to contain my scientific curiosity despite our dire situation. Instead of answering, the entity expanded, forming a dome of light that engulfed us completely. Within this dome, images began to appear, holographic, yet impossibly detailed. I recognized Earth first, but an Earth from long ago, with different continental arrangements. Then Mars, but not the red desert we stood upon. A Mars with oceans, clouds, an atmosphere teeming with life. Historical record accessed. The voice continued. Before the Great Migration. Before the transformation. The images shifted, showing what appeared to be humans, or beings remarkably similar to humans, constructing massive underground facilities on Mars. The scenes flickered forward in time, revealing catastrophic climate change, the seas receding, the atmosphere thinning. Then something unexpected, vessels leaving Mars, heading toward Earth. Your ancestors fled this world when it could no longer sustain biological life, the voice explained. The Guardians remained, transforming physical form to persist in the remaining water deposits. Memory was preserved. The return was calculated to occur when Earth's own climate cycle reached critical parameters. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. You're saying humans originated on Mars? That we're the descendants of Martian refugees? Partial understanding achieved, the voice acknowledged. The cycle requires completion. The ground beneath us liquefied completely, and we began to sink just as our habitat had. Despite our struggles, the strange quicksand pulled us downward with relentless force. Thomas reached for Rivera's hand, while Chen grabbed onto my arm in desperation. Wait! I shouted. We don't understand what you want from us. The entity's response was immediate and chilling. The terraform sequence requires genetic templates. You are the templates. That's when the second transmission cut through our communications, this one unmistakably from Earth. The voice belonged to the mission director, a man I'd only met once during training. Ares team, be advised. Your real mission parameters are now active. You were selected based on specific genetic markers. The entities you've encountered are not alien, they're engineered biological systems created by the Mars Advance team sent 20 years ago. The water narrative is a control mechanism. Do not, repeat, do not allow yourselves to be subsumed. Earth government has known about the Mars civilization remnants since the first rovers detected the underground complexes. Everything you've experienced has been anticipated. The message cut off abruptly as we sank deeper. Above us, the circle of light began to rotate rapidly, creating a vortex in the sky. They lied to us, Thomas said bitterly. They knew what was here and sent us anyway. Rivera's face behind her visor was a mask of determination. It doesn't matter now. We have to find a way to... Her words were cut short as a massive object broke through the surface nearby, sending plumes of red dust into the sky. At first, I thought it was part of our sinking habitat, but as the dust settled, I recognized the unmistakable shape of a spacecraft, not one of ours, but something far more advanced. Secondary team? Dr. Chen suggested hopefully that I shook my head. No. The design, it's not Earth technology. The ship's hull bore markings similar to the geometric patterns we'd seen throughout our ordeal. A hatch slid open, revealing a figure that appeared human at first glance, but moved with an unsettling fluidity that betrayed its non-human nature. "The cycle is broken," it announced, its voice somehow projecting directly into our minds. "The experiment has yielded unexpected results." The quicksand around us solidified instantly, trapping us in place as the figure approached. Behind it emerged others, dozens of them, each carrying devices I couldn't begin to comprehend. "What experiment?" Rivera demanded. "Who are you?" The figure tilted its head in a disturbingly human gesture of consideration. "We are the originators. You are the variants. Earth believes they sent you to recover Mars. We know the truth. Mars and Earth are merely phases in a much longer journey." The ground began to shake again, but differently this time, more controlled, more purposeful. From beneath the surface emerged structures that had clearly been buried for millennia, their architecture unlike anything in human record. The mysterious water substance flowed around and through these structures, bringing them to life with pulsing light. "Behold," the figure said, "the true terraform engines of Mars, designed not to make this world habitable for your kind, but to complete the adaptive cycle your Earth governments have misinterpreted. You are not here to save humanity. You are here to transcend it." As the massive engines rose higher into the Martian sky, the horrifying realization dawned on me: we weren't just stranded explorers or unwitting pawns in a government conspiracy. We were catalysts for something far beyond human understanding. And whatever was about to happen would change not just Mars, not just Earth, but the very definition of humanity itself. Thomas looked at me, his eyes wide behind his visor. "Alex, your suit breach, look at it." I glanced down and froze in terror. The automatic seal wasn't technology at all. The water-like substance had infiltrated my suit and was now spreading across my body beneath the fabric. Yet I felt no suffocation, no pain. Instead, a strange clarity was emerging, as if new neural pathways were forming in my mind. "I can hear them," I whispered. "All of them. The water doesn't just remember, it is memory. Living memory." Rivera reached for me, but the figure from the ship raised its hand, stopping her. "The integration has begun. The true mission commences." The Martian sky darkened as the terraform engines reached their full height, blotting out the distant sun. Whatever came next would determine not just our fate, but potentially the fate of two worlds bound together by a history we were only beginning to comprehend. The water substance spread through my suit with increasing speed, creating a second skin between the fabric and my body. I should have been terrified, but instead, I felt a strange calm wash over me as new awareness bloomed in my mind. "Alex, fight it!" Rivera shouted, struggling against the solidified ground that held her in place. "Don't let it take you." "It's not taking me," I said, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. "It's showing me." Through this new connection, information flooded my consciousness, not as words or images, but as pure understanding. The beings who called themselves the originators had seeded both Mars and Earth billions of years ago, initiating parallel evolutionary tracks as part of a vast experiment. Mars developed intelligence first, building a civilization that eventually detected their creators' observation posts in the outer solar system. When they realized they were being studied, the ancient Martians rebelled, developing technology to hide their presence. "They're not trying to harm us," I said to my team, trying to translate the complex knowledge now racing through my mind. "This isn't an invasion or a takeover. It's a reunion." The figure from the ship approached me, its features shifting subtly as if struggling to maintain human appearance. "Your mind adapts quickly. Better than expected." "What exactly is happening to Alex?" Dr. Chen demanded, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. The figure turned its unsettling gaze toward her. "The Water Collective is a data repository, living memory encoded at the molecular level. Your friend now serves as an interface between your kind and ours." "And what does that mean for Earth?" Thomas asked, his voice hard with suspicion. The originator made a gesture that might have been a shrug on a human. Earth was never the target. You misunderstand our purpose. The massive terraform engines had fully emerged now, towering structures that pulsed with energy. But they weren't pointing toward the sky as I'd first thought. They were angled toward Mars itself, driving deep into the planet's crust. Through my new connection, I understood their true purpose. They're not terraforming Mars to make it like Earth. They're awakening it. The entire planet is... I couldn't finish the sentence as the realization overwhelmed me. The originators hadn't just seeded life on Mars and Earth. They had transformed Mars itself into a vast, sentient supercomputer, using water as both conductor and memory storage. The planet wasn't dead, it was dormant, waiting to be reactivated. The cycle nears completion, the originator announced. After 50 million years, Mars awakens once more. The ground beneath us trembled, but not from seismic activity. It was more like the shudder that runs through a body waking from deep sleep. The red planet itself was stirring to consciousness. Commander Rivera, ever focused on our mission, asked the question we all needed answered: what does this mean for humanity? The originator's expression shifted into something almost like amusement. Humanity is younger than you believe, yet older than you know. The refugees who fled Mars carried with them genetic memory of this moment, encoded instructions to return when the awakening time approached. So humanity was engineered to come back and restart Mars. Thomas asked incredulously. Not restart, I said, the knowledge flowing through me. Complete. We're not separate from this process, we're integral to it. Dr. Chen, who had been analyzing data on her portable device despite our predicament, suddenly looked up with wide eyes. The water samples we collected, they're changing at the molecular level, restructuring themselves to match human DNA patterns. The originator nodded. The adaptation begins. The revelation hit me with stunning clarity. It's not just Mars adapting to us, we're adapting to Mars. The water doesn't just remember, it reshapes. Earth was never our final home. It was a temporary sanctuary while Mars completed its evolutionary cycle. Rivera shook her head in disbelief. You're saying all of human history, everything we've built, everything we've done, was just preparation for this moment? Not just preparation, the originator corrected. Development. Necessary development. Your species needed to evolve independently to develop qualities the original Martians lacked. Creativity. Adaptability. Empathy. As if responding to these words, the ground around us liquefied again, but this time it didn't pull us down. Instead, it released us, flowing back to form a solid surface. You have a choice, the originator continued. All humans do. Join the awakening or remain separate from it. Neither path has consequences. Thomas looked skeptical. And if Earth chooses to remain separate? The originator's expression became unreadable. Then the originators will withdraw. Mars will complete its cycle without human integration. Your species will continue on its current trajectory. Which is? Dr. Chen asked. The water in my suit pulsed, and I knew the answer before the originator spoke. Extinction within 3 centuries. Your climate models are correct. Earth cannot sustain your civilization as it exists now. A heavy silence fell over our team as the implications sank in. The choice wasn't just about our small expedition, it was about the future of humanity itself. So we're the ambassadors, Rivera said finally, her voice steady despite the weight of this new responsibility. We decide whether humanity joins this planetary awakening. You were selected for this purpose, the originator confirmed. Your genetic patterns are most compatible with the adaptation process. I looked at my teammates, seeing the same mixture of fear and wonder on their faces that I felt within myself. We need time to understand what this means. To communicate with Earth. To make an informed decision. The originator inclined its head. Time is granted. The terraform engines have initiated the planetary awakening sequence, but final integration requires conscious acceptance. With a gesture from the originator, our habitat rose back to the surface, fully intact. Inside, we found our systems restored and enhanced, with new interfaces that would allow us to communicate both with Earth and with the awakening Mars consciousness. Days stretched into weeks as we studied the data, conducted tests, and debated among ourselves. Earth governments, when informed of our discoveries, reacted with predictable chaos, some demanding we return immediately, others insisting we accept the originator's offer without hesitation. Scientific communities worldwide worked around the clock to analyze the information we transmitted, while religious leaders grappled with the theological implications of our findings. Meanwhile, Mars continued its awakening. The water network expanded, forming glittering veins across the planet's surface that pulsed with increasingly complex patterns. Through my partial connection, I sensed the emerging consciousness, ancient yet new, immensely powerful yet strangely innocent, like a child opening its eyes for the first time. That on the 30th day after our encounter with the originators, we made our decision. The four of us gathered in the command module, each having reached the same conclusion through different paths of reasoning. We accept the integration, Rivera announced to the originator who had remained nearby, observing but never interfering. But with conditions. Humanity must be allowed to maintain its identity within the greater consciousness. Our history, our cultures, our individual freedoms, these cannot be erased. The originator was silent for a long moment before responding. Conditions are unnecessary. What you call identity is precisely what makes human integration valuable. Without it, the awakening would be incomplete. The integration began that day, not suddenly, but gradually. The water substance, now understood as a nanoscale biological computer network, spread across Mars' surface, creating habitable zones where humans could live without environmental suits. The first colonists from Earth arrived 6 months later, volunteers who understood they would be changed by their new home even as they changed it. What none of us expected, not even the originators, was the final twist in Mars' awakening. As the terraform engines reached full power and the planet's consciousness fully emerged, it accessed memories far deeper than even the originators had planted, memories from before they arrived in our solar system. Mars remembered being part of a networked consciousness that spanned galaxies, a vast community of awakened worlds linked across space and time. And Earth, we discovered, held similar dormant memories locked in its core, waiting for humanity to evolve enough to access them. We hadn't just discovered our past on Mars. We had glimpsed our future. A future where planets and their inhabitants evolve together toward a kind of cosmic awareness none of us could fully comprehend yet. 10 years have passed since that first expedition. I still carry the water network within me, a living interface between human and Martian consciousness. Sometimes, standing on the red plains under the dome of a new Martian city, I look up at the blue dot of Earth in the night sky and wonder about the journey ahead. The originators tell us it will take centuries for the full integration to complete, for both Earth and Mars to fully awaken. But the first steps have been taken. Humanity has begun its greatest exploration, not just of another world, but of another way of being. The hidden secrets of Mars' water didn't just reveal our past, they opened the door to our future. A future where the boundaries between planet and person, between consciousness and cosmos, dissolve into something new and wondrous. And sometimes, in the quiet moments between Earth's transmissions and Mars' awakening pulses, I wonder if this was the real mission all along, not to conquer the red planet, but to help it remember. And in doing so, to remember something essential about ourselves. 20 years have now passed since that fateful first expedition. What began with 4 reluctant ambassadors has blossomed into the greatest collaborative project in human history. The Mars-Earth Initiative, as it's officially known, has transformed both worlds in ways none of us could have imagined. The red planet is no longer red. Vast swathes of its surface now shimmer with the blue-green of water and vegetation specially engineered to thrive in the Martian environment. The terraform engines, once thought to be weapons or tools of conquest, revealed their true purpose: to restore Mars' ancient biosphere using templates stored in the planet's molecular memory. Dr. Chen heads the Biological Integration Research Center near the original landing site. Her work with the water substance, now properly called aqua cognita, has revolutionized medicine on both planets. Diseases once thought incurable yield to treatments derived from the intelligent water's ability to reshape biological patterns at the cellular level. She still works tirelessly, her enthusiasm undimmed by the years, though gray now streaks her once black hair. Thomas became the chief engineer for the interplanetary communication network that allows instant data transfer between Earth and Mars, a system that operates on principles we once would have dismissed as impossible, using quantum entanglement properties of the aqua cognita. We're not just building bridges between worlds, he told me during our last meeting, we're reuniting siblings separated at birth. Commander Rivera surprised us all by becoming the first human ambassador to the Originator Council. She travels between star systems and vessels that defy conventional physics, representing humanity's interests as we take our first tentative steps into a galactic community older than Earth itself. Her messages, when they come, speak of wonders beyond our imagination and civilizations that have followed paths of evolution we're only beginning to comprehend. And me? I remain what I became that day on Mars, a bridge between consciousnesses. The water network within me has expanded over the years, allowing deeper connection to Mars' awakening mind while still preserving my human identity. There are thousands like me now, integration volunteers who serve as living interfaces between human thought and planetary awareness. The process hasn't been without conflict. Earth governments initially squabbled over access to Mars and its technology, corporations tried to monopolize the benefits, and religious institutions grappled with the theological implications of our new cosmic context. Some extremist groups still reject the integration, calling it an abandonment of human destiny or a surrender to alien influence. But these voices grow fainter as the benefits become more apparent. Climate stabilization on Earth, a direct result of technology gained from Mars, has averted the worst-case scenarios that once threatened our home world. Energy production through artificial photosynthesis, another gift from the awakening, has eliminated the need for fossil fuels. And the first children born with natural integration abilities, able to connect with the planetary consciousness without technological assistance, are now entering adulthood, bringing perspectives that bridge the human and the cosmic in ways their parents never could. Perhaps most remarkably, the originators themselves have evolved through contact with us. They confessed, 10 years into the integration process, that humanity had developed qualities they hadn't predicted, a capacity for both logical problem-solving and emotional connection that their own species had sacrificed long ago in their pursuit of efficiency. Our art, our music, our stories, these things fascinate them in ways they struggle to articulate. They learn from us as we learn from them, an unexpected reciprocity in what might have been simple colonization. Last week, I stood on the shore of the Hellas Sea, once a barren impact basin, now filled with water released from subsurface ice deposits by the terraform engines. A group of children played nearby, some fully human, others partially integrated, all of them citizens of two worlds. They were building sand castles together, laughing as small waves, actual waves on Mars, occasionally washed their creations away. One girl, about 7 years old with the faint blue shimmer in her eyes that marks natural integration, looked up at me curiously. "Is it true you were one of the first?" she asked. I nodded, smiling at her directness. "I was part of the original expedition." "Were you scared?" she wanted to know. "Terrified," I admitted. "We thought we might be facing the end of everything we knew." She considered this seriously before responding. "Instead, you found the beginning." Her simple wisdom struck me speechless. She was right, of course. What we had discovered on Mars wasn't an ending but a continuation, another chapter in a story that began before humans walked Earth and would continue long after our current forms had evolved into something new. As the twin moons of Mars rose over the sea and Earth glowed like a blue star in the darkening sky, I felt the water network within me pulse in harmony with the planet beneath my feet. The girl sensed it too, her eyes widening with shared understanding. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she whispered. "The remembering." I nodded, watching the starlight reflect off the gentle waves. "The remembering," I agreed. "And the becoming." The journey that began with a frightened team of explorers facing the unknown had transformed into humanity's greatest adventure, not conquering new worlds, but remembering our place in a living cosmos. Mars hadn't just been waiting for us to discover its secrets. In some profound way, we had been waiting to discover ourselves. The water remembers. And now, finally, so do we.